Ink Ribbon.
Resident Evil is one of the best franchises ever, but when it comes to the success of its multiplayer games, it's been a roller coaster of a time. Over the course of the series, we got to roam the streets of Raccoon City in Outbreak, shoot zombies with our friends in Umbrella Chronicles, spray down everything with bullets in Umbrella Corps, team up with a friend in Resident Evil 5 and 6, murder Leon and Claire in Operation Raccoon City, and try to escape from sadistic masterminds in Resistance. Now, some of these were a good time for most fans, and some, not so much. But now we're moving on to a new attempt at what appears to be a new multiplayer game, Reverse. So I got to play Reverse when the open beta came out, and the reason I'm just talking about it now is, well, it needs work. Now, I want to be very clear that everything in this video is coming from a genuine place of love, and I'm not just attacking the game. I know that some employees from NeoBards watch my videos, and that puts me in a weird position, but I want this to be constructive and not just criticizing the game. Also, keep in mind that this is still an unfinished product, and things can change and improve. So with that, let's quickly go over the bad. I understand that this was a closed test, and it was most likely to test things like connectivity issues, but the two biggest drawbacks by far were the repetition and the motivation to play. The first few rounds were me just getting used to the controls and learning the gameplay before I really started getting into it, and then it just turned into me dying over and over and over. And more often than not, it was just general chaos, and I didn't really know what was going on. There was so much happening on screen. But the main problem is that there was no real motivation for me to play more. At one point, I did okay and I got 3rd place, and then I did really well in a round and I got 1st place, which was genuinely exciting since everything at that point was just me getting slaughtered. But once I had achieved 1st place, I lost all desire to play. If I wasn't capturing footage for this video, I would have stopped right then and there. Another factor was the characters, both with balance issues and variety. While it is definitely cool to play as all our beloved Resident Evil characters, they all felt exactly the same in terms of gameplay. Well, except for Leon, who's severely overpowered when he uses his shotgun, making him quickly become the most used character. In Resistance, characters were able to use equipment and different skills to kind of play the game in a different way, in a different style, and if you were good enough, you could really figure out some cool techniques and really give yourself an advantage. In this game, you just shoot and that's it. Now let's talk about the good. My favorite thing about this whole game is that Capcom finally allowed for a multiplayer game that uses characters we know and love and familiar locations. However, this comes with a huge problem, which I will get into in a bit. The gameplay was straightforward and easy to learn, so you can jump into the game and learn the ins and outs fairly quickly. The star feature, in my opinion, was being able to turn into a BOW when you are killed. Depending on how many virus vials you picked up, you either turn into a Gamma Hunter, a Molded, or a random chance at either Jack Baker, Nemesis, or the mutated Mr. X. During this time, you become super powerful and can quickly catch up. Also, it's cool to just be able to control these monsters. Now, we've talked about the good and the bad, but I want to talk about the confusion? I wasn't even going to make this video until I had this epiphany about Resident Evil multiplayer and felt that it really needed to be mentioned. There tends to be two branches of multiplayer Resident Evil games, the successful ones and the failures. And there's a very simple thing that seems to almost be the determining factor in both. That factor is gameplay. But I don't just mean good or bad gameplay, I mean gameplay style, which is where I feel that Reverse follows Umbrella Corps and Operation Raccoon City in a very dangerous way. See, if you look at multiplayer Resident Evil games like Outbreak, Resistance, and even 5 and 6, you'll notice that these games use the gameplay of Resident Evil, gameplay that fans of the series know and love. When we played Outbreak, we already knew the tank controls and the game mechanics because they were just like the classic games. Same with Resistance, using the exact same controls and game mechanics as Resident Evil 2 Remake. So when Resident Evil already has its own established, perfected, and fun gameplay style that fans know and love and are good at, why would you switch it out for something like a shooter game? Now I do need to mention, I absolutely do not play third-person shooter games like these. I do not enjoy them, I am not good at them, and I am also unfamiliar with the more advanced strategies that I saw other players using. But that's also my point. As a fan of the series since the beginning, suddenly having a new Resident Evil game that I'm terrible at because the game has completely changed control style makes me feel alienated and like I'm missing out on the fun. So, in closing, the point that I wanted to make in this video is that I firmly believe that if done right, Resident Evil absolutely has a possible future of great multiplayer games, but Capcom needs to stop pursuing the success of other franchises and focus on its own. Resident Evil pioneered survival horror and continues to set the standard of gaming today. But of course, this is all my own opinion, so I'll turn the question over to you guys. Do you think Resident Evil can have a viable future with multiplayer entries, or should they just stick to single player? Let me know down in the comments, and if you have your own thoughts on the gameplay styles, I'd love to hear. But that's where I'm going to end this video, and hopefully I didn't sound too negative, because believe it or not, I am kind of a little bit of a Resident Evil fanboy. Until next time, I'm Kai Morgan, and as always, thanks for watching Ink Ribbon. And a very special thank you to all of my Patreon supporters and YouTube members. Your extra support means the world to me and helps me keep making content for you guys.